Hello and welcome to WION's special broadcast on U.S. election 2020. I'm Susan Tehrani. Today, we'll take a look at the recent vacancy at America's top court and the political battle it's created as we get close to the U.S. presidential campaigns. But first, a look at the headlines.
Following the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Ginsburg, President Donald Trump plans to announce his nominee later this week. The Senate Republicans are preparing for an aggressive power play to solidify a majority in the Senate.
From the lakes of Minnesota.
Dozens of protesters marched to the Supreme Court opposing the move to fill Ginsburg's vacant seat before the elections.
Expand the court! Expand without inauguration! No confirmation without inauguration!
Please follow your conscience.
People don't.
Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden appeals to the Republicans, asking them to defy the U.S. president's decision to nominate a Supreme Court justice before the election. Biden further accuses Trump of abusing his political power in his attempt to push for a nominee.
Follow your conscience.
The Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, endorses Donald Trump in his re-election bid. Orban says that Democrats have forced moral imperialism on the world. With the election day inching closer, the presidential nominees shift their focus to the battleground states. Donald Trump heading to Ohio for campaign events. Joe Biden scheduled to return to the battleground state of Wisconsin to address a rally. Wall Street falls over concerns about fresh coronavirus-driven lockdowns and the inability of the Congress to agree on fiscal stimuli.
The death of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has caused a political storm just weeks before the November elections. Just hours after the announcement of her death, U.S. President Donald Trump and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell vowed to replace her before the November elections. While Democrats denounced the decision, former Vice President Joe Biden appealed to a group of Republicans to prevent the president from making the lifetime nomination. As the country braces for a political showdown, here's a report on the possible frontrunners for the U.S. Supreme Court nomination.
The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
President Donald Trump is all set to announce a nominee this week. Trump has promised that he will nominate a woman to succeed Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
As we meet tonight, our nation mourns the loss of a legal giant, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Her landmark rulings, fierce devotion to justice, and her courageous battle against cancer inspire all Americans. You may agree, you may not disagree with her, but she was an inspiration to a tremendous number of people. I say all Americans. We will uphold equal justice under the law for citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed. I will be putting forth a nominee next week. It will be a woman. It will be a woman.
Who will be the woman to succeed Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Earlier this month, Trump put out a list of more than 40 lawyers who would be considered in case of a vacancy. Here are some possible frontrunners.
Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
48-year-old Amy Coney Barrett is a favorite among religious conservatives. A native of New Orleans, Barrett studied at Notre Dame Law School. She was appointed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit in 2017. Barrett has been in favor of Trump's hardline immigration policies.
Football games? Were you a fan? I did. I went to all of the football games.
She has never ruled directly on abortion. However, she has cast votes that signal her opposition to rulings that struck down abortion-related restrictions.
Do not be afraid of failure. Do not be afraid to make mistakes. Be bold and take risks.
Barbara Lagoa has made her conservative views known in business cases. 52-year-old Lagoa was appointed to the Florida Supreme Court in 2019. She is the first Cuban-American woman to serve the state's highest court.
This rule governs the conduct of a lawyer who is representing a client.
She was then appointed for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, which covers Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. This month, Lagoa joined the majority in upholding a law requiring people with past felony convictions to pay fines before regaining the right to vote.
The law on paper and the law in practice are not actually different things, but they're different lived experiences.
51-year-old Joan Larson is also on the list. She was appointed to the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals in 2017. She has been a law professor for much of her career.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, only the second woman to be appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, paved the way for women's equality and women's rights to be taken seriously in the courts and society. She persuaded an all-male bench to add a protection clause to sex discrimination laws. She is known to be a pop culture icon for her career and decisions. Here's a look at the life and legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, also known as the notorious RBG.
I, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, do solemnly swear.
On August 10, 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the second woman in U.S. history to become a justice of the United States Supreme Court. Ginsburg knew she wanted to be a lawyer by her third year in college.
That's the same thing that the Communist Party is doing too long.
She was motivated by the Red Scare that gripped the nation in the 1950s when Americans were afraid of the perceived threat posed by the Soviet Union. Led by Senator Joseph McCarthy, thousands of people were publicly accused of being communists.
There were brave lawyers who were standing up for those people and reminding our Senate, look at the Constitution. Look at the very First Amendment. What does it say? If lawyers can be helping us get back in touch with our most basic values, that's what I want to be.
Ginsburg's parents discouraged her from studying law, fearful that she would not be able to find a job in the male-dominated profession. But Ginsburg was determined, and after graduating from Cornell University in 1954, she was accepted to Harvard Law School just 5 years after they started admitting women.
When I entered law school, the class numbered over 500. 9 of us were women.
2 years later, Ginsburg's husband, Martin Ginsburg, a renowned tax attorney and law professor, took a job in New York City, and Ginsburg transferred to Columbia University. She graduated from Columbia Law School in 1959, and, as her parents had predicted, she found breaking into a man's world challenging.
There wasn't a single firm in the entire city of New York that was willing to take a chance on me.
But with the help of a sympathetic professor, she got a clerkship. Soon after, she started teaching at Rutgers University School of Law and Columbia Law School. In 1972, Ginsburg founded the Women's Rights Project to work for equality for women and girls in all spheres of life.
At that time, there were many, many laws on the books that gave preference to men simply based on their being men.
Lenora Lapidus is director of the project, an initiative of the American Civil Liberties Union.
Throughout the 1970s, as she led the Women's Rights Project, she brought case after case to the Supreme Court in order to establish that the Constitution prohibited sex discrimination.
2 decades later, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a member of that court, appointed in 1993 by President Bill Clinton. During her time at the Supreme Court, she was an articulate voice for the liberal wing of the bench. Ginsburg believed that gender barriers facing women in the workplace today have all but disappeared in the United States. What remains, she said, is something a court cannot mandate: for American society to be open to the idea that women and men need a balance between work and family. Ginsburg balanced her own life as a working mother of 2 children with the love and support of her husband Martin, who passed away in 2010.
Well, the most important thing by far was that I had a life partner, my husband, who thought my work was at least as important as his, and who wanted very much to be part of his children's growing up years.
Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg says she has always tried to do what she believes is right.
I hope that I will be remembered as someone who loves the law, loves her country, loves humanity, prizes the dignity of every individual, and works as hard as she can with whatever talent she has to make the world a little better than it was when I entered it.
Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.
A political row has emerged over the vacancy of a seat that often has the final say in some of the country's most decisive political issues. Now, the U.S. judiciary and this vacant seat has emerged as a new political issue in the 2020 U.S. presidential elections. Former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden has slammed Donald Trump for trying to make a nomination for this seat before the November elections. Joe Biden has also accused Trump of abusing his power while making an urgent appeal to the Republicans.
Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden lashed out at President Donald Trump and Senate Majority Leader McConnell for being in a haste to fill the vacant Supreme Court seat. Biden has accused Trump of abusing his power and the Constitution.
The United States Constitution was designed to give voters one chance to have their voice heard and who serves on the court. And by the way, there's no court session between now and the end of this election. That moment is now for the voters to get a chance to be heard. And their voice should be heard. And I believe voters are going to make it clear they'll not stand for this abuse of power, this constitutional abuse.
In his speech at the Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Biden appealed to Republicans to follow their conscience.
And now, in a raw political move, this president and the Republican leader have decided to jam a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court through the United States Senate. That's the last thing we need at this moment. As I said, voters have already begun casting their votes. So I appeal to those few Senate Republicans, the handful who really will decide what happens. Please follow your conscience. Don't vote to confirm anyone nominated under the circumstances President Trump and Senator McConnell have created. Don't go there. Uphold your constitutional duty, your conscience.
He reiterated that it was Ginsburg's last wish to not be replaced until a new president takes office.
Her granddaughter said yesterday and said publicly that her dying words were, quote, "My most fervent wish is that I not be replaced until a new president is installed." As a nation, we should heed her final call to us, not as a personal service to her, but as a service to the country, our country, at a crossroads.
The issue of a vacant seat in the Supreme Court has now taken center stage. Trump plans to fill the vacancy before the November elections. In 2016, when the Senate was faced with a similar situation, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had blocked Democrats from appointing a nominee. He said that it was an inappropriate step to be taken in an election year. And now taking a U-turn, McConnell now supports Trump's decision to formally nominate a justice before November 3rd. Critics are now slamming Mitch McConnell for what they call is a hypocritical stance.
After Joe Biden's appeal to not vote for a nominee, a second Republican has come out in support of keeping the seat vacant. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska has announced that she will not vote on a nomination for the U.S. Supreme Court seat so close to the November elections. Here are the details.
After Republican Senator Susan Collins, it is Lisa Murkowski who has rejected the idea of voting for a nominee before elections. Collins said, in fairness to the American people, who will either be re-electing the president or selecting a new one, the decision on a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court should be made by the president, who is elected on November 3rd. Senator Lisa Murkowski has taken the same stance. In an interview to Alaska Public Radio, she made it clear that she would not vote to confirm a nominee before the election. The statement came shortly after the announcement of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. She added, "For weeks I have stated that I would not support taking up a potential Supreme Court vacancy this close to the election. Sadly, what was then a hypothetical is now our reality, but my position has not changed." In 2016, 8 months before the election, a vacancy was created by passing of Justice Antonin Scalia. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski's stance on nomination remained the same. Republicans control the Senate with a 53-47 majority. They need only 51 votes to confirm a new justice after formal nomination. Should two more Republican senators side with Collins and Murkowski, Democrats will be able to block or at least delay a confirmation vote. 3 Republicans have not yet made their position clear. All eyes are now on Cory Gardner of Colorado, Chuck Grassley of Iowa, and Mitt Romney of Utah.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi paid her tribute to the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg outside the Supreme Court on Sunday. She said that Ginsburg's death is an incalculable loss to democracy and a loss for all those who strive to make a better future for children. Here's more.
Democratic House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi laid a wreath to late Justice Ginsburg outside the Supreme Court. People continue to light candles and write messages outside the Supreme Court in the memory of Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the second woman in the U.S. history to serve as a justice in the Supreme Court. A champion of gender equality, Ginsburg broke multiple barriers during the course of her career. She emerged as an inspiration for millions of Americans. Pelosi tweeted, "Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg may have been petite in size, but the impact she left on America was immense. May her memory be a blessing and inspire each of us to work toward a more equal, more just future for all." Pelosi laid a bouquet at a makeshift memorial outside the Supreme Court. She made no public statements. She paused briefly in front of the memorial and made the sign of the cross before leaving. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren joined Americans mourning the demise of Ginsburg. Warren criticized Mitch McConnell for pushing nomination of justice before the presidential election. She said the fight is not over, it has just begun.
Today, Mitch McConnell and his henchmen believe that they can ram through a Supreme Court justice only 45 days from the election. Mitch McConnell believes that this fight is over. What Mitch McConnell does not understand is this fight has just begun.
People outside the Supreme Court listen to an a cappella group sing songs from the era of the civil rights movement.
And I say, brother, won't you help me?
As Democrats and Republicans enter the final stretch of the campaign, focus has been shifted to battleground states. U.S. President Donald Trump took his campaign to North Carolina, a state which has opted Republican 9 out of the 10 previous U.S. presidential elections. In 2016, polls indicated that Donald Trump won North Carolina by a small margin. However, this year, polls indicate that Joe Biden may be in the lead. Here's a report on why North Carolina may play a crucial role in the upcoming U.S. presidential elections.
North Carolina has 13 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives and 2 seats in the U.S. Senate. It is one of a handful of states that could determine the election. Critics say North Carolina will be a difficult state for the Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden to wrest from the Republicans. Former U.S. President Barack Obama won the state in 2008. He was the only Democratic presidential candidate who managed to win the state in the last 44 years. However, the current trend shows that people in North Carolina are likely to favor Biden over Trump. Predictions don't always give a clear picture. In 2016, poll averages underestimated Trump's margin over Hillary Clinton. It was Trump who ultimately won the state. North Carolina is the first state which started mailing out absentee ballots 2 months before Election Day. By September the 4th, North Carolina had logged more than 600,000 requests for an absentee ballot. Trump has time and again voiced his distrust in the mail-in vote. He asked people of North Carolina to mail their votes early and visit the polling booth to recheck if their vote has been cast. He went a step ahead and asked people to vote again in case of a doubt. Trump is trying hard to boost his poll numbers against Joe Biden. In North Carolina, Trump tried to shore up support among members of the military. The state also witnessed Trump's stepped-up efforts to make China a central theme of the election.
We will deliver a safe and effective vaccine this year. It's already in very good shape, very, very good shape, in a matter of weeks. We will end the pandemic from China. We will end our plague from China. Next year will be one of the greatest years in the history of our country. It's heading that way. You see it.
The United States has reported more than 7 million cases of coronavirus, which is the highest in the world. North Carolina is the 9th worst affected state, with more than 193,000 COVID-19 cases. The state has reported more than 3,000 deaths. During his election rally, Trump accused Democrats of being willing to let people die for political gains.
But the Democrats don't want the vaccine. They don't want to, at first they wanted a vaccine because they didn't think it could happen. Now that we have it, they're going like, well, we don't want it. It's the craziest thing. Think of it. You want to get a vaccine, and they're willing to hurt people, let people die for political reasons. Think of it. I think it's a disgrace.
He criticized Democrats as he addressed a room jam-packed with people. Many of his supporters were spotted without masks. Authorities in North Carolina do not permit gatherings of more than 50 people, a rule that was flouted during the rally. Presidential election 2020 is unlike any other ever witnessed in the U.S. history. North Carolina remains a challenging state for both Democrats and Republicans. Biden enjoys a slight lead over Trump.
Let's get out and vote! Vote, vote, vote!
But it is too soon to say who will be the ultimate choice.
And that's all for today's special edition of U.S. Election Special Broadcast. We'll bring you more headlines and updates tomorrow, same time. Thanks for watching.